Hey, I'm Trey, and I have another gruesome story for you. Have you ever wondered why some people disconnect from being human beings and turn into emotionless killing machines? I have, which is why I like reading true stories such as these. I upload new content every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. If you're ready, let's get started. (1951) In the country of Czechoslovakia, the country was still under the control of the USSR. Many people had to prove their loyalty to Russia or face persecution. Most did this by willingly joining the Communist Party, which was basically a dog and pony show to prove that you were happy that Russia controlled their lives. In reality, most citizens had contempt for being under Russian rule. If you were wealthy, you'd buy your freedom out of the country. If you weren't wealthy, you'd pay someone to smuggle you and your family across the border into American-controlled territory. This is what hundreds of thousands of people did to escape, and this is how it's been since the end of World War II up until the late 1980s. In March of the same year, in a very rural part of the country, a fire broke out in a small cottage occupied by several people. Investigators responded and found the remains of an adult male burned beyond recognition. The investigators were able to determine a cause of death, but strongly believed that it was likely that the victim burned alive. Due to the isolated location, no witnesses or leads could be found. In July, within the same general area, several children were playing in a large sand pit. One of the children uncovered a human leg separated from the rest of the body. I guess he was like, "Hello, what do we have here?" The authorities were contacted and they were able to locate a body of the deceased woman. After a close inspection, it was found that the young woman was gagged so that she couldn't speak and had a rope shaped like a noose around her neck. An autopsy was done and the woman was identified as Renata Belova. The investigators then responded to a relative of the victim's home and spoke with several family members. The family was in disbelief because the victim, along with her father, defected to the American-controlled western part of Germany. The two of them had paid someone to smuggle them along with their niece across the border. As a matter of fact, the family members had recent letters that were mailed to them allegedly from their 12-year-old niece. The letters expressed how happy and pleased that she and her uncle were living a good life in West Germany as free citizens. Police were able to identify the alleged human smuggler as Hubert Piklik. Hubert was born in the Czech Republic in 1891. He was known as a survivalist that lived by himself, who could live off the land and enjoyed nature. Many people that were interested in fleeing Russia would call upon and pay him to help them get around the security patrols at the border. Hubert had learned his survival skills by being enlisted in the military as a sailor. The police also found that Hubert was also known to be dangerous and was an expert in handling weapons. The authorities located his residence and used a special forces team to enter and capture him. The authorities did a search of the residence and found dozens of items belonging to people who allegedly defected from the country. Several firearms were found along with dozens of suitcases owned by several missing defectors. As the authorities continued to dig at his house, they found a hidden room constructed as a jail cell. The jail cell was constructed to be soundproof. Within that makeshift cell was the 12-year-old niece, who happened to be the niece of the victim found burned alive in that cottage. The 12-year-old had been chained to the wall, and a large wooden box with a lock was placed over her head in order to muffle her screams. Hubert would keep her as a pet. I can only imagine the amount of emotional scars that this child has to live with for the rest of her life. So sad. He would force her to urinate and defecate in buckets and feed her like an animal in pet bowls. When Hubert became sexually aroused, he would continuously rape the child, then force her back into her cell. The rapes and abuse continued over the course of 4 months. Hubert would force the child to write letters to her family stating that she and her uncle were living well. Hubert would then take the letters and deliver it to the child's relative. The relatives would in turn pay Hubert for allegedly smuggling these fraudulent letters across the country for the relatives to read. Hubert was arrested and interviewed. Hubert would go into detail that he killed both of his child's relatives during their sleep. Hubert explained that he bashed both of their heads in with a baton. Afterwards, the child was taken hostage and he kept all of their belongings. When Hubert was asked what was his plans for the child, he confessed that he had plans on killing her and disposing of her body, but the police arrived before he could execute his plans. When he was asked about what happened to the other dozens of other defectors that he had allegedly managed to help cross the border, Hubert remained silent. The police believe that based on the amount of stolen property and the amount of luggage found in his home, Hubert possibly killed as many as 24 people over the course of 2 years. The bodies of the additional victims to this day had not been located. Hubert was ultimately charged with 5 murders. He was remanded to prison until his trial date. A month later, Hubert killed himself in a jail cell before he was held accountable in court for his crimes. Why is it that the people who spread the most misery can't live with being punished for their crimes? If you're interested in more stories like these, I upload new content every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. God bless and stay safe.